made change, and not just a little bit of change, but we changed Canadian policy.
Tonight, after years of fighting the Canadian government in court, a mother and daughter force change that will benefit countless First Nation children.
A question in the Nunavut legislature has residents wondering if they'll lose a multi-million-dollar Inuit Cultural Centre.
You know, we use that word reconciliation a lot lately, but it is to be able to work on a good path together as nations.
And the Royal Saskatchewan Museum celebrates Indigenous History Month.
Good evening, I'm Melissa Ridgen.
And I'm Dennis Ward. There's some good news tonight for First Nations kids in need of orthodontic care. It comes 2 years after APTN first broke a story about a young girl in need of braces.
Changes are coming to a federal policy which will mean kids who need orthodontic care will actually get it. Here's Annette Francis with that story.
The battle over braces is now over for this Cree girl from Sucker Creek First Nation. Her mother, Stacey Shiner, has been in a federal court battle. For the past 3 years, she's been fighting for her daughter's right to orthodontic treatment through the First Nations and Inuit Health Branch. She recently learned that her case against the federal government has been settled.
It's been a roller coaster ride, the ups and downs. It's been super educational and almost in an old sense super motivational for us, because we stuck with it, we stayed with our belief and what we were fighting for, and we made change, and not just a little bit of change, but we changed Canadian policy.
When Josie was 13 years old, she suffered with chronic jaw pain and was in need of braces, which would have cost $6,000. But the claims were denied 3 times. So Shiner took the government to court, and rather than pay for the braces, the federal government spent over $100,000 fighting it. Now, not only have they won the right to have Josie's braces covered, but the federal government has agreed to amend its policy to ensure other kids like Josie can receive the treatment they need.
It was worth every investment that we did put into it, everything. The change that's going to happen and moving forward, and what the NIHB has proposed to do over the next couple of years is going to be paramount, and it's going to change a lot of things for a lot of children.
The Minister of Indigenous Services, Jane Philpott, says she's pleased with the settlement.
We will be using a new internationally recognized standard for evaluation of cases where there is a consideration that needs to be taken effect in terms of the pain or suffering of the client involved. And we have every reason to believe that this will lead to expanded access and that it will be fair for families.
The new policy will be in place by June 15th. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
This story struck a nerve with many of you who took to our social media with dental coverage nightmares of your own and thoughts on the policy change that will take effect on June 15th. Kevin Starr wrote in, "I had 3 children that required braces and we had to pay ourselves. Thankfully, we had good coverage from our work plans, but the point is dental care is a treaty right. All 3 children had medical documentation stating it was required, and the government's response was it's considered cosmetic and was denied." Sonia Bolio wrote, "All my girls have suffered and still suffer because I could not afford braces. Turned down by NIHB saying it's cosmetic. My youngest has taken pain meds because her teeth, jaw, etc. hurt. I wish they did this a long time ago so these people didn't have to go through this." And Libby Walker wrote, "NIHB denies most everything except for cleaning. Seems I have to appeal most dental work." We would love to hear from you on this or any other story, and here's how you can contact us. Send us an email to news@aptn.ca, like our APTN National News Facebook page, follow us on Twitter at APTN News, or go to our website, aptnnews.ca. The communities that make up the Musqueam region in central Alberta are in mourning after a car crash claimed the lives of 5 people. It happened just south of Edmonton yesterday. All were under the age of 30, and 3 of the deceased are sisters. The 2-vehicle collision claimed the lives of Cheyenne Soucy Northwest, Dominic Soucy Northwest, Letitia Soucy Northwest, Anthony Swampy, and Terrell Mind. Samson Cree Nation Chief Vernon Saddleback says it's a horrible tragedy that affects everyone, even if you didn't know those involved. The crash comes a little more than a month after another crash claimed the lives of 3 people from that area.
It's tough to lose one family member, but when you lose 5 from a community, that's what, words can't express. I honestly don't know what to say about it. It's just, part of this I'm still in shock myself, to hear this kind of tough news yesterday. But yes, it is definitely a tragedy. And at this moment, the only thing I can think about is just praying.
A question in Nunavut's Legislative Assembly had residents wondering if a one-of-a-kind cultural school was going to be replaced with a drug and alcohol rehab facility. The school is safe for now, but as our Kent Driscoll explains, the government's response shows they may want a rehab. They expect Ottawa to get it done. This from Iqaluit.
This is the cultural school in Clyde River, Nunavut. The $30 million facility teaches Inuit tradition and culture to students, and has since 2011. Heidi Kublu was a student there last year.
I loved it right away. We get to see beautiful sites of camping grounds, learning about the land, about sea mammals, what needs to be done while camping, how to shelter, how to raise children, Inuktitut words, how to be civil with people. Also, we present what we learned to elders.
That's why Nunavut residents became concerned after a question from Pangertung MLA Margaret Nakashuk. She asked in the Legislative Assembly if the government was still considering repurposing the facility into a rehab facility. The words "still considering" got some attention. Most didn't know it was being considered at all. Kublu wants things to stay as is.
I would want that building to be the same, life-changing. It makes you a better person.
The government of Nunavut says they aren't going to change the facility to a rehab facility. They also won't talk about it publicly. Both Education Minister David Johannesy and Health Minister Pat Ancanak refused interview requests and sent APTN National News written statements. Both statements deny they plan to convert the facility to rehab. Neither addresses whether it was considered. Nunavut's lack of a rehab has hung over Nunavut politics for years. It was a reason some opposed the opening of a beer and wine store in Iqaluit, and is now a reason why some are opposing marijuana legalization in the territory. They say that without rehab in place, there is no place for drugs and alcohol in Nunavut. The Health Department statement explains they're hoping the feds will build it. We look to the federal government for their resources, expertise, and funding to make this a reality. The cultural school is safe, for now. But one thing is clear. The Nunavut government is considering options for a rehab facility, which would be a first for the territory. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Time for a quick break, and then we'll look at how a museum in Saskatchewan is marking National Indigenous History Month.
And we'll have a sneak peek at a national billboard project that's showcasing Indigenous women artists. But first, here's a look at Thursday's weather forecast. On the East Coast, a mix of sun and clouds. Charlottetown 18, Fredericton 21, Halifax 13. In northern Quebec and Labrador, we have 14 expected for La Grande and 17 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. 18 in clouds in Saguenay and Quebec City. To Ontario, 19 in Sault Ste. Marie, 20 in North Bay, 21 in Ottawa. Big Trout Lake is 18 with some sun, 25 in Sioux Lookout. In Manitoba, 21 in Rain and Norway House, 19 in Thompson, and 7 in Churchill. 17 in Barons River, 27 in Gimli Harbour, and 26 in Winnipeg. Lots of sun over in Saskatchewan, 27 in Yorkton, Swift Current, and North Battleford. 21 up in Stony Rapids and Larange, and 26 in Meadow Lake.
Welcome back. The Royal Saskatchewan Museum has been showcasing Indigenous culture for 25 years, and for all of June it will host events celebrating National Indigenous History Month. Tamara Pimentel has more.
What makes this gallery at the Royal Saskatchewan Museum unique is the collaboration between the museum and First Nations people throughout the province.
possibly maybe about the treaty negotiations.
Curator Evelyn Siegfried says the RSM is believed to be the first museum to consult with elders for every display.
It's important that that process took place, and we're celebrating all of that together.
And the museum is doing just that. A month-long celebration for the gallery's anniversary and for National Indigenous History Month by showing films created by First Nations people and holding gallery tours and demonstrations.
We decided, because it's the 25th anniversary, that let's have a special month that celebrates everything about the gallery and Indigenous people, and put on something that's special for everyone.
The museum displays the past, First Nations contributions, and how they lived in Saskatchewan thousands of years ago. But program specialist Teresa Walter says this month the RSM wants to look at issues occurring today.
You know, really what we're teaching here is, or what we're wanting people to learn, is to have an understanding. To understand where we have been, to understand where we are now, and how we can work together towards, you know, we use that word reconciliation a lot lately, but it's to be able to work on a good path together as nations.
Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Regina.
A new exhibit is hitting the road showcasing contemporary Indigenous women artists. 50 women are part of Resilience. Their works will be displayed on billboards from coast to coast. Here's Brittany Hobson with more.
Images of Indigenous women flash between the ads on this electronic billboard in Winnipeg. The images are part of a new exhibition project called Resilience.
It's a celebration and affirmation of the vitality and complexity and diversity of Indigenous women's art.
From June until August, nearly 170 billboards across the country will display the artwork of 50 Indigenous women artists. The project was started as a way to support collaborations between Indigenous peoples and the arts community. Exhibit curator Leanne Martin chose pieces which illustrated the complex relationship between Indigenous peoples and Canada.
It was important to me that the exhibition have a balance between celebrating our Indigenous culture and their history and contemporary realities, and critiquing the history, the colonial history, and also the ongoing devastation in communities by the government and corporate interests.
One of those pieces is from Cree and Ojibwe artist Casey Adams' Perceptions Project. In it, Adams tackles stereotypes and racism by letting subjects label themselves.
I feel like we're going through the Renaissance period of creativity with our expressions, our storytelling, sharing our voices, and it's really, really exciting, and it goes beyond victimhood.
She says for a long time, women have been viewed only as victims, but Resilience is changing that.
The great thing about women in the community is that it seems that we're the ones that are leading the way, and having these billboards accessible to not just our community, but the entire Canadian community is absolutely incredible, because they're going to see our perspective.
For Martin, the sentiment is the same.
The last thing in the world that we all wanted to see was the notion of victimization for the women. It was like, no, we are strong, we are, we've endured, we're adaptable, and we are resilient going into the future.
The project is produced by Mentoring Artists for Women's Art, a Winnipeg-based group. Shauna Dempsey, co-director for Mawau, says it was important to place billboards along roads in major cities and reserves.
We kind of, pieced it together so that the works would be seen by as many people as possible. The works would also be seen by as many Indigenous people as possible, and the works would be placed in such a way that they'd be resonant with the home communities of the artists.
For more information, visit resilienceproject.ca. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
2 young women from the Musqueam First Nation near Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, are using their newfound business skills to raise money and awareness for a worthy cause. CTV's Holly Giesbrecht reports.
Redwater's Bagging makes backpacks and kokum change purses that represent different aspects of the Cree culture. to raise awareness and create change. Shanice Bouchain and Cassandra Bear joined the Muscadet Youth Business Club in 2016, where they learned how to start a business and market a product.
Like red is, like she said, very symbolic and everything, and then like waters is like we live, like Muscadet is by like a bunch of waters.
Their goal as a business is to be the voice of lost sisters, of the missing and murdered Indigenous women in Saskatchewan and across the country. The bags range in price from $5 to $20, and 10% of all sales are donated to a women's shelter here in Prince Albert. Holly Giesbrecht, CTV News, Prince Albert.
A Winnipeg school that incorporates Indigenous language and traditional teachings in its curriculum is celebrating a milestone this year. Here's Ashley Branson with more.
8 bundles of sage.
For 25 years, Nijimakwa School teaches kids important life skills like reading and writing, but they also integrate another valuable component into their curriculum.
What makes Nijimakwa unique and exceptional is the fact that we've found a way to integrate ceremony and culture into as many facets of the school life as possible.
The school teaches the primary subjects, but with a twist. Teachers infuse Indigenous perspective into their lesson plans.
The staff collaboratively over time developed some thematic-based units and inquiry-based lessons that allow for the curriculum to be immersed or infused into their daily life here at the school.
Nevaeh Mikish Kennedy says she enjoys learning about her culture, including the 7 teachings.
We do them throughout the day, so like if we're in a class, we'll be told to represent respect and everything.
To celebrate the school's anniversary, students wrote letters where they see themselves in the future. The letters were placed in a drum created by another North End Winnipeg school, R.B. Russell's Metals and Welding Shop. And throughout the year, students will be able to reflect on their responses.
I didn't really wrote where I see myself, but I did like how I wanna be and what I wanna have.
Goring says he takes pride in the supports Nijimakwa offers students.
Nijimakwa has been a leader now for 25 years in supporting families and developing amazing staff to ensure that First Nations and Métis peoples and families are not only celebrated but acknowledged, and that we're doing our best to develop the future leaders of tomorrow.
Ashley Branson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Graduation is the time to celebrate your success and accomplishments. For the first time, University of Lethbridge's Indigenous students had the option to wear traditional regalia in place of the caps and gowns. Allison McKinnon has that story.
Patricia Bruised-Head is graduating with an addictions counseling degree and a minor in Aboriginal health. But that's not the only thing she's celebrating.
Being on traditional territory, Blackfoot territory, and the first year that the U of L is allowing First Nations grads to wear traditional regalia means so much to me. It's a part of who we are. It's a part of who I am, and it just means so much to me.
For the first time, Indigenous graduates will now have the option to wear a cap and gown or choose their own traditional dress. For Patricia, the choice was simple.
Being the first time that U of L is allowing First Nations to wear traditional regalia, I feel like I'm wearing my regalia for the First Nations people who graduated before me who could not wear them, because I know there's been so many who have wanted to wear the regalia and couldn't.
Every Indigenous student will be able to keep a custom stole featuring traditional First Nation symbols.
To physically and very visually recognize our Indigenous students, it's huge for the community of Lethbridge, it's huge for the University of Lethbridge, and I think this is a stepping stone, and I hope other institutes are able to recognize and show the respect and the honor, because here on the national stage, a lot of our Indigenous students want to feel that welcome.
Staff from Indigenous Services here on campus say by giving students the opportunity to embrace and showcase their culture, it'll give them a sense of belonging.
This is a huge, huge representation of the inclusive environment of the University of Lethbridge, and how the university, the president, they want to make sure students feel welcomed.
Allison McKinnon, CTV News, Lethbridge.
Time for a quick break, but stick around. There's more to come.
But first, here's the rest of Thursday's weather forecast. Northern Alberta is looking warm, 24 in High Level, Peace River and Grand Prairie, 26 in Edmonton and Red Deer, 25 in Calgary and Lethbridge. Cloud and rain on much of the west coast with temperatures of 13 in Tofino and 14 in Port Hardy. 12 and rain in Sandspit, 22 and some sun in Fort Nelson and Fort St. John. In the Yukon, 11 at Rock River, 17s for Mayo and Watson Lake. In the NWT, 19 in Trout Lake, Wattie and Fort Resolution. A mix of sun and cloud further north, 8 in Paulituck, Tuck, and Inuvik is 13. 11s for Baker's Lake and Arviat at 3 with clouds in Repulse Bay. 2 in Resolute and 1 in Cape Dorset. Foodies visiting the Calgary Stampede this year are in for a real treat as the new culinary creations make their debut on the Midway menu. Those with a sweet tooth will love the hot ice cream donut sandwich with Kit Kat fries, or the watermelon filled with watermelon ice cream. Some of the more daring menu options include a caramel apple covered in crickets or cheesy chicken hearts. Fried food is always a hit at the Stampede, and fans can get their fix with the deep-fried giant squid on a stick.
Hot ice cream donut sandwiches look good, though. Here's another installment from our ongoing Something You Don't See Every Day file. Police in Virginia had to chase a stolen armored vehicle. Bizarre scene. The tank-like carrier took authorities on a 100-kilometer journey before the driver was arrested. The vehicle was stolen from a National Guard base in Fort Pickett. It was later abandoned. Turns out the driver was a soldier. I guess it wasn't that funny, but it looked a little funny when it cruised by.
It was moving really fast. That moved faster than you would think.
Good camera work to be there to capture that shot as well. That is your APTN National News for this Wednesday. For more, including more on that crash that claimed the lives of 5 in Northern Alberta, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Have a good night.